Hi, beautiful souls. It's Dr. Danny. I'm here today to bring you an energy update. I'm calling this one today the cycle of truth. I also want to bring you some information about the astrology over the weekend. We've got Neptune turning retrograde, Mercury conjunct the Sun, grand trining with Saturn and the South Node. Then we have Mars Venus conjunction, perfecting and grand trining with the Moon and Chiron. And then, of course, we have a Sagittarius full moon over the weekend. But I want to tell you a quick personal story that was pretty synchronous. You guys know I do astrology. You also may know I'm a physician, but you may not know what kind of physician I am. And I'm actually an obstetrician gynecologist, which means I deliver babies. Okay. And I take care of women. And from time to time, a few times a month, I have to do what's called a call shift, where I spend 24 hours with my phone and I'm just available to any person, patient, nurse that needs me for those 24 hours. And yesterday was one of those days. And the last baby that I delivered early this morning was named Faustello. And what was so interesting about this birth, I won't give you all the gory details, but the baby basically shot into my arms and I literally caught the baby. Sometimes you have to help, but basically the baby just kind of landed in my arms. And it was so funny because the dad was laughing and he said, "Oh, the baby's name is Faustello." And Faustello means shooting star. So I just thought that was really cool. Ever since getting into astrology, my clinical practice and my 3D job has just gotten so much more depth and beauty and compassion to it. Um, so with that, let's talk a little bit about truth. I think the energies this weekend are going to hit us in our truthies. I think there's going to be some truth coming at us. I think we're going to be able to take a little bit of a different perspective on things and see things as they really are. Um, Arthur Schopenhauer is a philosopher, and he was quoted as saying, "All truth passes through three stages. The first, it is ridiculed. The second, it's violently opposed. And then the third, it is accepted as being self-evident." I read an article, I think it was in the medium.com online, but they basically quoted Schopenhauer and then told a story about Galileo and his discovery of the stars. He actually was someone that his father wanted him to go to medical school, but while he was there, he didn't want to do it. He kind of fell in love with mathematics, and he invented lenses and was able to point those lenses at the sky and see the rings of Saturn, the moons of Jupiter, and confirmed with his own observations that in fact our solar system was heliocentric. In other words, the sun was the center of our solar system. And the church was a big deal back then. And the church said that, we lived in a geocentric model where the earth was the center of creation and all heavens circled around the earth. So Galileo got into a lot of trouble with the church for that. His first article that he published, he kind of got a warning, and then he wrote a book and he was sent to jail and he died in jail as a heretic. Um, a lot of people being reincarnated right now are finding trouble finding their voices because they were people like Galileo in the past that were cut down, that were, silenced for the truth, right? Um, so there's this cool quote that I pulled from Thomas Aquinas that I want to share with you, and then we'll get right into the astrology, guys. Let me go to my photos. Here we go. So truth is seen in its threefold aspect, appear before us in a perfect cycle, from God to things. So in other words, the truth of things, ontological truth, wherein man sees all things to be what they are precisely because they do so exist in the exemplar mind of God. From things to the mind of man, which is the second one, logical truth, the truth of thought, since here he makes a logical judgment of reality as it is ontologically true. And finally, from his mind to his actions, which is a moral truth, a perfect cycle beginning with God. So who is truth? Stretching into the uttermost bounds of reality, finding a place in man's mind and perfect expression in his actions. So let's get into the astrology. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you some pictures of Prometheus charts that I got for you guys. There we go. So we're going to start with June 30th. Two big things happen on this day. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. First thing is that Neptune in Pisces stations retrograde and will be in retrograde until around November, December, I think. It spends 40% of the year in retrograde. So a lot of people probably have retrograde Neptunes in their chart. A lot of my research into Pisces and Neptune, this is kind of the home spot for Neptune. This is where Neptune is exalted. This is where Neptune does its best work. And we're talking about a lot of dreamy, watery, psychic, spiritual energies that are going on when Neptune is direct. Neptune is the planet of illusions. It attains its highest enlightenment in everything that's possible. So boundaries, giving completely of the self, melting into the oneness or the collective. And when Neptune goes retrograde, what happens is that some people say they're weakened. I feel like since we're on the same side of the sun, its effects are probably a little bit stronger and they're not so diluted by the sun when they're on the other side. But we'll go with the traditional thought. And essentially what it says is that the dream and the reality begin to melt away. And so during the time that Neptune is in retrograde, we're going to see a higher perspective coming in, the veil, so to speak, lifting, right? And complete sublimation of the ego. Now, what's interesting about Neptune right now is Neptune takes a really long time to move, right? It's been squaring the galactic center for a while and will continue to do so because it's moving backwards now, and it will have to retrace its steps once it goes direct again. So the galactic center, that's where the center of our Milky Way is. That's where there's an enormous supermassive black hole that's holding all of this matter together, keeping us here in the Virgo cluster, keeping us here around our sun. So astrologically speaking, if you look at your natal chart and you've got some sort of aspect there, like your sun, your north node, or if it's in your ascendant or in your midheaven, it may have a particular significance for you. So when the transiting Neptune is squaring on the galactic center, whatever is in there is probably pretty important for you. So that means this might not be all good. Sometimes lifting of the veil means exposing the truth, right? Met with resistance, as Galileo's story would tell you. The other thing that's happening the same day on the 30th is that Mercury and the sun over here are forming what's called a superior conjunction. So that means that Mercury is actually all the way on the other side of the sun from us. And it's in orb with Ceres, the star Sirius, and it is also trine sextiling the nodes, sextiling the north node and trining the south node. Sirius, in my reading, has always been about the divine truth. Mercury is about attaining truth, about knowledge, about transmission, and about receiving. And what's interesting about this is it is trining on Saturn down here in Aquarius. So you have a trine sextile the nodes and a trine to Saturn. And this whole combination, to me, especially in Gemini with the Sun and Mercury, feels like helpful lessons of truth. Right? So you've got Mercury transmitting and receiving. You have the sun, that's the highest expression of your spiritual energy. You've got Gemini, that is about, the truth in programming. Saturn is in Aquarius, teaching us lessons about the new age. And then Virgo, South Node and North Node in Pisces is evolving towards unconditional love and oneness. And so how do you do that? You lift the veil, you see the truth of oneness. But before I go on to the next day, where we go on to June 1st, I want to show you the Mercury cycle. So when I say superior conjunction, you know what I'm talking about. The last one we had was in March 17th. This is actually a picture that I created for my video, Mercury in retrograde, and that is on my YouTube channel. I will leave a link below for y'all to check that out. It is a great use of your time if you want to understand Mercury cycles and how they can affect you. Because when Mercury is in its superior conjunction on the other side of the sun, my hypothesis is that we don't directly get Mercury energy. It's transmitting and receiving, but it's being filtered through the sun. And what does the sun do? The sun transmits its light out, and then its light is reflected back to our eyes. And that is how we perceive reality. So as Mercury was drifting away from us when it's stationed direct on the 14th of May, my advice to folks was keep transmitting your intentions to Mercury. Keep giving it to them. What is your truth? Your truth. What do you want to see? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do? Because Mercury is transmitting this to the sun right now. And so the sun should be reflecting the synchronicities back to you. Because if you're a channel and you're intuitive and you use that kind of Mercury energy, the channel might feel weak and sporadic right now because it's not directly near the earth. It's got to go through the sun. But you still may see those synchronicities from light being reflected back into your eyes through the sun's energy. So I hope that makes sense. All right, that was just one day. Let's go over to the 1st of July. And here is the day where the Mars and Venus conjunction that's going to last until about the 18th of July in terms of, about 9 to 10 degrees separation. This is where it perfects. In other words, this is the closest that Mars and Venus are going to get. And they grand trine on an Ophiuchus moon and Chiron in Pisces. So Chiron is our wounded healer teacher. Chiron is, I feel like, is one of those luminaries that actually resists enlightenment because Chiron needs the wounds. If he doesn't have the wounds, he can't heal. If he can't heal, he can't teach. And so he's constantly reminding us where our wounds are. And it doesn't get any better unless you deal with them, unless you, feel it, heal it, alchemize it, transmute it. And that's sort of what Chiron in Pisces is teaching us. It's that collective deep subconscious wound, which is disconnection from spirit. But here in this big grand trine, you've got the moon in Ophiuchus, and Ophiuchus is ascension energy. It's healing energy, and the moon is how we feel. So we're feeling the healing with the unification of the divine feminine and the sacred masculine, the first distortion of infinite oneness, woman, man, masculine, feminine, light, dark. And that's what that symbolizes for us in this conjunction. So this is really, really fantastic. So yeah, I see this as healing the bond and then seeing the ego for what it actually is. It's not something you have to heal or admonish or tame. It's something that you have to embrace and love. And if there's parts of it you don't like, you have to learn to love and you have to let that unfold. So to me, this is one of the biggest truths of this of Saturday that's coming up. Then finally, on July 2nd, we are going to have our Sagittarius full moon. And if you don't think that's all about truth, I don't know what it's about, okay? Because you've got Mercury, Sun, and Sirius opposing the moon in Sagittarius, right? And then you've got, so Sagittarius is about higher learning, the higher truth, the higher knowledge, the higher wisdom. And the moon is about magnetizing it and drawing it in, where the sun is reflecting it. So the information, the transmissions coming from the sun are being reflected from the moon through Sagittarius energy. So this almost has to be about the truth, this full moon in Sagittarius. It's actually it might be, depending on where you are, early on Sunday morning, which is the 3rd. So the moon has a sextile with Saturn and then a trine with Jupiter. And then the sun Mercury has a sextile with Jupiter and a trine with Saturn. You can't even make this stuff up if so the moon and the sun are both hitting Saturn and Jupiter in a trine and a sextile. So you've got this Sagittarius moon reflecting the true information from the sun through Gemini. And then you've got Saturn, the lessons of the new age, and Aquarius, lifting of the veil, with Jupiter in Aries, belief in the self, right? So belief in the self, structures of the new age on the axis of the full moon of truth. So this feels to me like full truth and lesson is revealed today. You will know exactly the next steps and be able to accomplish these things. And this is all in the fullness of the belief of self. So this is the full moon for this weekend. So I'm going to close this out by describing to you the 12 cycles of truth from yogi practice. So first is learning the truth. Second is honoring the truth. Third is accepting the truth. Fourth is observing the truth. Fifth is hearing the truth. Sixth is preparing the truth. Seven is loving the truth. Eight is serving the truth. Nine is living the truth. 10 is working the truth. 11, walking the truth. And lastly, being grateful for the truth. So whatever comes up for you, that's your truth. And that's the perspective that you're going to work with after this weekend. And one final quote by John Dryden, an English poet laureate from the 1600s. He said, "Errors like straws upon the surface flow. He who would search for pearls must dive below." So dive deep into the watery energies of Neptune and Pisces. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And all you lurkers out there, subscribe to my channel. You know you want to. Just hit the button. Visit my website, drdani.com, DRDANI.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Danny Inman. Links to my Mercury retrograde video, and of course my love child project, my Venus transits that came out early last week. So do check all of that out, and until next time, namaste, my friends.